creators, collectors, and crypto art lovers. I'm Natalie.
And I'm Mark.
And we're from Creator Collective. This video marks the launch of our first ever Level Up NFT art contest.
For this inaugural event, we have sought out the amazing OG VR master Metageist as our first ever featured artist. In this interview, we cover a wide range of topics, including his inspirations, struggles, and tips, and then take a deep dive into his creative process with the VR sculpting tool, Gravity Sketch.
We hope that by watching this, you'll all get inspired to create and enter our competition. All the details for the competition parameters are outlined below. So if you're ready to submit, go take a look down below and click on the Google form link to enter.
Massive thanks to Rarible DAO for supporting this project. We hope you enjoy this wide-ranging conversation with Metageist. Let's get to it. Metageist, welcome to the first episode of Level Up, which is a creator collective project funded by Rarible DAO. And I guess we can start with your background. We're really interested, for people who are unfamiliar with your work, can you please briefly introduce yourself, the work that you do?
Yeah, cool. So I'm Lee Mason. I'm known as Metageist. I'm a virtual reality artist, I would say these days. I've got about over 20 years experience of being a freelance digital artist. Graphic design for a big chunk of that, like 10 years of graphic design, and always trying to get more into being an artist, being an illustrator, and being able to have complete creative freedom, which is a very common story. Like, a lot of people become designers because they're creative people, they want creative work, but the easiest way to monetize that is to take on commission work, contract work, stuff like that. So I didn't go to art college, didn't go to college at all. I went straight from school to trying to run a business at like 18, a creative business, failed miserably at that, and did a bunch of jobs in factories and all sorts of horrible jobs for a while, and then tried again. And then I've been freelance for a long time now. Yeah, and I've always sort of also been a promoter of events as well, and a bit of a community builder in a sense, basically because nobody else in my town did it, and I wanted to see shows and go to shows that I wanted to go to. So I did a lot of like promoting club nights and rock shows. And I mention that because I'm seeing myself doing it again now in the NFT space. But the last sort of 4 years, I have been focused heavily on virtual reality art tools. I had a go on Tilt Brush on an Oculus, on a HTC Vive, right when it was released. A friend of mine, actually, I was asked if I would look after a headset for someone at the end of an event, and I jumped at the chance, and I invited all my friends around, and we played on VR like all night, and from that, and I tried Tilt Brush, and it completely blew my mind. I'd always been fascinated by 3D, but never really delved into it properly. I was able then to just draw in 3D for the first time. And also in a space where there's no distractions, it's very easy to find a flow state. And that's one of the best things about it. So ever since that moment, I was like, this is what I want to do now. So I've been focusing on that. It was hard to monetize until NFTs came along though, because, how do you sell a VR environment or character to people when hardly anybody had headsets, and there was no way of really monetizing it. So what I did is I did workshops and tutoring, and traveled around the UK, trying to pass on that knowledge and trying to sort of share it. I'm just like really enthusiastic about it, and wanted to share that magic. Ended up doing stuff in hospitals and schools and universities. I could talk more about that, obviously, but in a nutshell, that's my sort of journey from graphic design through to illustrator. I've done about 100 album covers or so as well. So I used to teach Photoshop as well, so it was always 2D. And then I'm sort of learning 3D because of virtual reality. And I got into NFTs when I was starting to try to understand the 3D workflow. So I came in as like, hands up, I'm a novice 3D artist, but why don't you come on my journey with me and see how I develop over time? So my sort of collectors have seen me sort of put out quite sort of simple and naive, but still hopefully sort of engaging sort of characters and stuff. And they're watching me. It's good because then I have to make progress because I've got everybody watching me.
Yeah, that's amazing. To me, you sound like someone who has lived multiple lives from being, a designer, a freelancer, a promoter, a community builder. And, I feel like that's some very much like the direction that a lot of artists, or at least multi-dimensional, multi-skilled artists sort of like take, where you sort of like all these learnings from different facets of your experiences sort of inform each other. And I'm curious, and maybe this is sort of like honing more on the VR side of things. I'm curious, like, what the journey was like. I know that you touched on it, but how did all of these experiences sort of inform your journey into VR? And yeah, I'm really just curious, like, how that flowed, onto VR.
Yeah. So it's a case of, I'm one of those people, and think artists generally are, and a lot of people in the NFT space are sort of people that are excited about new things and sort of always jumping onto the next latest thing and excited by technology and really get enthusiastic and excited when I think about the future. And I'm very much opposed to repeating myself. I don't like doing anything I've ever done before. It makes life quite difficult sometimes, because I'm I'm running an event tomorrow night, but I'm also curating 2 10-people shows at the moment, and
Wow.
doing all sorts of other things at once, because I'm constantly saying, I'm excited by stuff, and I like that about my personality. Like, I'm happy and I enjoy like new things, and I'm sort of curious. So I've always done that. So I generally sort of make promises, and then I have to do the thing that I promised. So I say like, oh, you know what? I'm going to put a rock show on, or like, I'm going to start a business. And I've never been scared of that. The very first time I used a VR headset, the very, very first time, was like an Oculus dev kit that a friend of mine had. And it was the most rudimentary thing. There was like a couple of tech demos. It made me a bit nauseous. It was huge. But you put your headset on, and we were in like like the holodeck in Star Trek, when it's not on, it's just like a grid. It's like a box room with a grid on it. It was like that, with 2 static 3D models in it, just a mannequin and a car. But I was in that space, and it sort of shook me to my core. I was like, one day this is going to be great. And it was about a year or 2 later, even maybe 2 years later, when I actually finally played with Tilt Brush. But from that point on, I was like, VR is going to be huge. It's going to be big. Because I was so surprised by how my brain was fooled. Like, it was a really low res screen, but because the trackers can tell where your head is, because it's got an accelerometer in it, thanks to mobile phone technology, these VR headsets were made possible. And your brain, you can hear other people in the room, and obviously, it's like when you have a lucid dream, you sort of know you're dreaming, but you can still feel like you're in a place. So that's like exciting future technology. So it was inevitable that I would end up sort of working in that. I think it's the same with augmented reality as well. It's things that I think it offers unparalleled sort of potential for storytelling, and also, like, by being someone who's like easily bored and constantly looking for novelty, the fact that there's anything's possible in that space, and you can create anything. Like, I could theoretically design a whole, like, a architecture or a whole like dynamically generated environment or whatever in the future, and I want to. There's some of my lofty goals to sort of create whole worlds one day. Yeah, that sort of sense of just like trying to do everything at once has led me down to this thing that might allow me to do anything at once, if that makes sense.
No, totally makes sense. I think what I'm getting from what you shared is that there is a certain spirit of continuous like evolution and learning and novelty, which I think is really an important spirit for creative people to sort of like.
But I never master anything, because I just I move on to the next thing, and I get bored really quickly, even with the stuff I really like.
yeah. I think there's something. Yeah, go ahead, Natalie.
No, I was just saying, I saw your TED talk, and it reminds me of when you were showing your awesome art when you were a kid. It's just like to see you're like how you're just basically now you're in that world where you can make it, you can create it, 3D print it, make it move around. And
I think it's really weird that I didn't get into gaming, because I had computer games from a really early age. I was like not 7 or 8 or something when I got my first Atari, and I even started coding games before I was 10. And then for some reason, I never thought of it as a career path. And I thought I wanted to be an animator or an artist. And I thought if I start as a graphic designer, then I'll work my way into it. And it's so strange that I didn't really get heavily into gaming. I often think about that, but I used to make up essentially games on paper. Like I used to draw lots of different like platforms and levels, and I would imagine how they would pan out if it was a game. Way into my teens when everyone else was, you know, doing like interested in lots of other things. I was still interested in like drawing and like trying to like tell the stories. I was a bit of the freak in the classroom. Everybody's like, Lee, tell us one of those weird stories, make it up on the spot, and I just sort of riff and I'd make sound effects when I'm drawing. I'm undiagnosed, but I'm pretty sure I'm ADD. And when I look back, I was just like, I was that kid that was constantly talking rubbish and making noises and drawing things. And now I get paid for it.
That's what I saw like from that TED talk. I'm like, he's manifested his world for his kid being.
Yeah, I've got a massive pile of sketchbooks, and
I
looked through them the other day. I've got like maybe about 15 or so. I don't, for some reason, I haven't had a sketchbook for years now, but I've still got all my old ones, and they start from 6 or 7 years old, and I've got loads from my early 20s. And when I look at them, it's so weird. I think you do hear this from other artists, but it is still surprising when you look back at your old work and go, oh, I've always been drawing these like circular like monster mouths and tentacles and things with lots of eyes. Like
that's what I noticed.
And a lot of my characters got like these little floating bracelets on them and stuff like that, and I didn't, and lots of tubes and pipes, like sci-fi pipes and stuff. And I looked at some of my things from like school days, and it's like, yeah, it's so funny. I had forgotten that I did these drawings for so long, and I'm still doing it now. They're just 3-dimensional now, I suppose.
It's amazing that you mentioned video games. I think a lot of people in our generation, and even the younger generation, I think gaming is a big part of them and is a big part of popular culture in general. And it's interesting how you sort of like mapped out, okay, you know, like you were creating and building worlds, you know, when you were sort of like thinking about video games, and even like very simple video game design, you know, that you were doing as a kid. And now sort of like you being a VR artist, it's essentially, at least to me, a way of world building, a way of building space, because it's very spatial. You know, yes, you have like a piece here, but the piece also works in conjunction with the space that you created. That could be a blank space, but still very much spatial, you know. It's really interesting to see that trajectory. I have a question in my mind that's maybe like a little more simpler, and maybe this might be helpful for people who are not very much aware of VR. I wanted to know what the difference is between VR and AR, at least in how you perceive it and how it's like in your head.
Yeah, I think personally, give it maybe 5 years, maybe 10 max. We will look back at that weird time where we differentiated between VR and AR. I think one of them, VR plays like fools your brain into thinking that it's a virtual reality, a different reality, because it covers your senses and it replaces the real world with this fantasy world that behaves in the way your brain expects it to. And augmented reality augments it. So it adds on top of existing reality. So it uses cameras and sensors, and it adds art, sculptures and architecture or artifacts onto the surface in front of you. But I think that these headsets that we've got now that are quite, you know, they're pretty light and sleek compared to what they were a few years ago, but they're going to look like the 80s mobile phones. They're going to look really clunky and silly soon. And we know that Facebook and Apple are working on headsets. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg described Facebook as a metaverse company like 3 days ago.
I saw that.
Yeah. I saw that too.
Yeah. So like, this is inevitable. Facebook have like over 1 billion users. Like, that's insane. And so I do think that the metaverse is going to become definitely a household term. Yeah. And these AR glasses that Apple are coming out, and they're going to blend with VR, and you're going to be able to just make them opaque with a click of a switch and then be in VR and then turn them into AR again. And this sort of period of time in the last sort of 20 years really, or 15 years, where we've all been like looking at screens in our hands, it's going to look very strange as well, because we may carry the processor in our pocket and it will have a screen, but it will talk to the thing that we wear, and that will obviously get smaller and smaller until eventually it's plugged into our spinal column, and with one with the metaverse.
Yeah, I mean,
it's probably maybe 11 or 12 years till we get there.
I mean, maybe think of like Neuralink, right? Like what if Neuralink comes to like such an advanced level that we could actually have multiple worlds that we're inhabiting, one which is the real world, the augmented world, virtual world.
Yeah, I mean, we already do psychologically.
Yeah.
Like, you know, our personality for most of the people that we relate to and that relate to us, they relate to our online persona. It might be a poorly curated Facebook feed, or it might be Instagram food photos, in which case, you know, try to use your imagination. But we are living in this space, in this world where we are like, psychologically, we are living in a digital world, especially exacerbated by COVID and lockdowns, and in conjunction with virtual reality headsets and things like that becoming cheaper and more prevalent. And I mean, children spend, you know, sometimes the vast majority of their waking lives playing Roblox or looking at an LCD screen of some sort, or Minecraft or whatever. These are the real metaverse platforms that like whole cultures and societies are growing in, and they have currencies and everything. And you know, when people in the NFT space talk about metaverse, they talk about Somnium Space and crypto voxels and Decentraland and that, but this is like the tiniest little weird little niche, and it is right on the cusp, like the forefront of the vanguard of technology, but it's the tiny fraction of what the metaverse really is, which started with the first internet message boards, I think, and is actually populated largely by children who are probably communicating in languages we wouldn't even understand.
Yeah, I live in a house with 3 kids who are Roblox addicts, so I'm the one showing them the metaverse, and they're like, that's weird. I brought them to crypto voxels and you know, just Decentraland, and they're just look at me like, why are you playing where we play? You know?
Yeah.
And I'm like, I think what they're doing is awesome. Some of the worlds they're creating and the crazy parties they go to, I'm like, that's wicked. Are you DJing? You know, they're already kind of doing all the things we are all passionate about, like community building, event management. They're doing all this stuff in these in Roblox, you know?
Yeah,
totally.
Yeah. And they really care about what their little Roblox avatar looks like.
Yes,
and they probably care more than what their real trainers are, you know, look like. When I was a kid, like I was the kid with the cheap trainers that got picked on for having high techs and not having Nikes. Like it must happen, you know, it must happen the same in the, you know, in these games and stuff, because you know that billions are spent in Fortnite on wearables and things. So.
Yeah, they spend a lot of money on Roblox. They're always asking for cash. That's what they want. What do they want for the Christmas? Money to buy stuff for Roblox.
Right. Yeah. Says it all.
Yep.
We're already in the metaverse, really. We are. It's just not like Ready Player One or Matrix level. So we feel like we're not really there. But we think about it. I remember hanging out with Natalie in crypto voxels.
Yeah. It's almost like it's like a proto metaverse, or we're actually sort of like in the early stages of the metaverse. Although I don't know if you guys share my bias. I certainly have a bias against big tech, you know, and so a world where the metaverse is run by Facebook is not too attractive for me. But I think
not at all.
One that is decentralized, one that actually the ownership is by the community. The development is by the community, is much more attractive to me.
Yeah.
And maybe this would be maybe a good segue for us to sort of maybe talk about blockchain and crypto and NFTs, and maybe you could share with us like how your journey is like, you know, venturing into that, you know, into that world. I'm curious.
Yeah, I think like a lot of people, it was. I lost a lot of work that was coming up, festivals and workshop work because of lockdown, and around this sort of time I'd also seen, I think it was Giant Swan had sold a virtual reality painting for a couple of $100. Saw that on Instagram actually, and I was just like, he's just made a bit of his own like weird art and he sold it. I have to understand what on earth this is. Had no idea like what I was letting myself in for, like, or also how successful it would be and how quickly it would be. I think I got in, a year and a half ago, probably like March, probably last year. So coming up to a year and a half, but in NFT crypto time, it feels like years ago, but
It's true.
it was early enough to be able to get onto some of the big platforms quite quickly. I was lucky enough to have done a TED talk and things like that. So I had some sort of like, I had a photo of me with a TED logo behind me, and that instantly gave me clout. And I was just like, I just messaged Super Rare and I was like, hey, I've done a TED talk and here's my latest piece of artwork, let me on. And they were like, yeah, cool, go, jump in. And I put a piece up really quickly and it was bought. And it was bought for like 2.5 ETH, which was like $700, $600 at the time. And honestly, that blew my mind. And I was just like, this is it now. And I haven't since then really stepped away from it. I've been absolutely like fascinated by the whole thing. And it's, and I'm like 600 NFTs in now, all sold, and
that's awesome.
on all the platforms. And I love it. Like I really do. I'm not going to pretend it isn't exhausting sometimes, and it's hard to sort of stave off the FOMO. And I should probably have a day off, and go have a holiday or something. But then there's been nothing to do anyway. I'm in a village in the UK, and I'm not allowed out of the country. Well, I wasn't. So because of COVID, I might add, and also the thing is, it's hard to sort of say no to so many amazing opportunities, and also you just get surprised by things, just like you get invited onto platforms, you get airdrops, you get like loads of collaboration opportunities, and now I find myself like curating as well, and and I used to run this club night called Flux, which was like a sort of tech focused evening, like club night in a bar with DJs, but then with virtual reality and computer games and speakers talking about drones and lasers and stuff like that. Really geeky.
That sounds fun.
2 of them on in Mozilla hubs. Like even though I couldn't get out of the into a venue, I still carried on doing the shows, and I just made it about NFTs. Yeah, it hasn't stopped. It's been, and I've really, really enjoyed it.
I guess along the lines of what you're talking about, like, how do you see the NFT space evolving, and like, what is your vision?
There's a part of me that thinks that like NFTs, well, blockchain is essential, and Bitcoin is, fundamental to that. That decentralized, borderless, bankless, governmentless, middlemanless way of transferring value was something that had to happen, is essential. And it's definitely not going away. They've been trying for a decade. It's, and they can't, so now they're just buying it all. So, and I think that's beautiful. And I think that people can, exist like that. I think we've got very turbulent times coming up, but I do think that NFTs are going to be fundamental to it, because they are that mutually agreeable, immutable, transparent certificate of authenticity that says when something was born, what it is, where it's been, and who owns it now. And you need that to exist in this space and transfer wealth and objects and stories around the world, regardless of where you are in this rocking space. That's we can't. Yeah, I just think it's, the internet, a lot of people thought the internet was going to be this like utopian connector of all people. And now it's just, cat gifs and bullying on YouTube comments. There's a lot of, it's not what a lot of people hoped it would be. And I think blockchain is going to be the same. It's going to be really messy, but the potential and the good that can come out of it is huge. So I think a token is just going to be like, everything's going to have a token. And a lot of those things aren't going to have a physical counterpart. And if we can have like fashionable clothes and music and art and objects and cars and rocket packs and all these things like tokens, like NFTs, there's a really good side to that as well, in the sense that things of value, things that are collected and held and that will, theoretically be your legacy and exist forever into the future, aren't made of plastic and aren't made of, fossil fuels and aren't made of fabric that ends up in the ocean or anything. So I think yeah, I can imagine that we already are at that point where these layers of digital augments are sort of appearing on Snapchat filters and things like that. But we are going to watch it unfold in the next sort of really, really soon, in the next sort of 5 years, and see that some of them, some of the really big value, the things that people really value, are just going to be like an NFT is going to give them its value. So they feel like they were inevitable, and that they are here, and they're going to be consistent, and everything's going to be attached to them. But then I would say that because I've been so far down the rabbit hole, and I haven't like popped my head up for like a year and a half, so I might just be like completely brainwashed.
I think it's really cool to hear, what you think of the space moving forward. And I really love also how you touched on how or at least from what I'm getting, is that blockchains and cryptos and NFTs are sort of like another layer. Like the internet started as like sort of a utopia. It still holds that promise, but of course we've seen that with Web 2, it's sort of like, we essentially seen like where that went. And so I guess with blockchains and cryptos and essentially also NFTs, like it's an attempt to sort of like maybe like add another layer that could possibly correct or maybe open up other possibilities, not only for artists, but for people, for human coordination, redistribution of wealth, stuff like that. And so maybe to hone in a little bit more on NFTs, I'm curious if what your challenges were, as you were falling down the rabbit hole, or what your current challenges are in terms of like NFTs.
Yeah, I feel like, let me think. There was a lot of challenges. Like there certainly isn't easy. Like, and I think some people, start whining on Twitter because they haven't sold their first NFT yet, and they've been there 3 days. They're missing the point. Like, you have to be genuinely enthusiastic and passionate about it, and you have to enjoy community, and you have to enjoy being part of a movement, I think, and enjoy other people and support other people. So like one of the challenges is that like you are tapped into this like 24/7 world, and it's you have to be able to make time to sort of step back, because it can be like full on, especially when you're doing drops and things. So like another one that's definitely for me, actually is a struggle for everyone, I think, and certainly a lot of people that I know, that when we don't talk about it enough, is that there's an awful lot of pressure that comes from dropping, especially a big drop that's taken you months. It takes guts to sort of show the world anything that you've made, really, and everyone can sort of relate to that. But when you work for months and months on something, and then you've got like there's a moment of truth that rests on like 1 second when a page unlocks, and people can buy and stuff like that. That's like pretty intense. I've definitely had quite a few sort of sleepless nights in a row because of that. You've also got to sort of realign your expectations of sort of selling, like, as much as it is a lot, I prefer it vastly to sort of making t-shirts and skateboards, which is all I ever did before, really, in posters, and then putting them on Etsy and then saying thank you. You have, you are here. See, the thing is, like, there's the whole investment side of things. So a lot of your collectors, they should love your art. That's the kind of might be my first rule when buying any NFT, is like enjoy it regardless of how like you think it might go up in value. But from that point on, after they've bought your piece, they're part of your, for me, like the Metageist journey, to as much or as little as they want to be. And you're beholden to them, and you owe them. And they also, so it's a good thing, because for a start, like most people, like I do when I buy other people's artwork, it's lovely to know more about the artwork and the artist and the backstory, and know about the broader message and the inspirations and the ambitions of that person. But you're also then kind of like a bannerman, like a flag bearer for them, and it's great as an artist to have like your collectors have got your back, and they will help you advertise. And from a very cynical perspective, it might be because they've invested a lot of money and they want to, they want you to be successful because of that. But it's also just really fun to do that with, and pull together and lift each other up. So that's why I started my Discord, is because I saw a bunch of friends sort of potentially struggling with, well, they were struggling not having any art sort of opportunities and sort of said, look, this is going really well for me, you should join me. And it's a cliche and everyone says community every other word on these things, but it's very, very true. It's all just people. It's all just creative people trying to express themselves by whatever means and try and pay the bills, really. So yeah, it's a case of sort of realigning the collector and artist expectations and understanding that you are in this together. You are all in this together. And largely most of the time, that's just like a really awesome thing. 100%. Challenges are also like trying to avoid FOMO and like I definitely try to I entice people in, but I also say maybe don't worry about trading because there's the whole crypto side of this, crypto art.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to just sort of like put all of your money and lose all your money overnight and things like that. So I've learned the hard way just to focus on the art.
Yeah, that's so true. I think that's really very helpful advice to a lot of like people, sort of like emerging NFT artists or crypto artists, whatever they call them currently. It's important to hear, but also like as an artist too. To me, I guess primarily as an artist first, is to really just focus on your art, and to really nail what you wanted to sort of express. The containers or the vessels that we sort of present this artworks are secondary. I think that's how I see things. And I really also love that you also mentioned community. I think because it's a really important aspect of all these things, not only with crypto but NFT artists. There is certainly a connection between the collectors, the creators, and people actually like. I would even say like investors, maybe they're under the collector sort of bucket, but it is a symbiosis. It is. Yeah, like I think the visual in my head is that we are all nodes and we are all sort of like connected to each other, and the more that we actually talk together and gather information, the stronger the network is.
The collective brain that's forming. And no, I think it's beautiful what you're saying, because it's like what even brought me into the space was like, oh, I'm going to mint an NFT. What is this? And then I got sucked into the discussion forum and the Rarible DAO. And then I was like thrown into a project. And then I got to meet all these opportunities would never happen if I didn't engage on this level, which is kind of why we'd want to do all of these campaigns to show all these artists, either old or new, like, look, there's so much to learn and so much to engage in. That we think is super valuable and will teach you something. It might not necessarily mean that you're going to sell your NFT tomorrow, but through these communities, you're going to get super interesting ideas or connections or something.
Yeah, absolutely. I really like that. You're right. It is symbiotic, and I love the image of all these nodes, like synapses in the big brain.
Yes,
all connected.
Yes, absolutely.
And the art as well. Like the art works. I mean, regardless of any technology or NFTs or anything, I do see art as just like this, like the symptom or the side effect of creative like process and creative expression. Like when you've almost finished a piece and you're already bored with it, but you've got to do the last bit and you've got to get it out the door or whatever because the exciting part's gone. That's because we always want to be just because it's discovery. We discover what we put out. When people ask me like, what is this thing you've made? I have to be like, I don't know yet. I'll know in like 6 months time, because I'll be like, oh, that's what I was trying to say. And so it is all about the process, and it's really awesome when that's a collaborative process.
I also love another thing you guys were mentioning, the beauty of like a lot of times people come in just as artists, and I'm like, I've cut again that artist journey, but then I became a collector too. Like how the artist should also like enjoy, like learn about that process and be like, that's just as fascinating to me. So
it's actually like my one piece of advice I would say was like get collecting straight away, even if you
that's what I did. I have to step away though. I'm like, I have no more money. I'm like, I can't look at anything else.
Like just look for like the cheapest thing you can find. You know, just because you get it. Once you've got one or two, you're like, oh, actually, I'm proud of my little collection now, and I've helped an artist out, and that artist can now pay the rent for a week or whatever off of that, and then but then it can get very addictive as well.
Absolutely.
I've got at least 300 pieces now.
I feel like collections offer a sort of like a peek into your identity too. Not like for you as an artist, that's on one side. the collecting side of Metageist is also another side of like, it shows your aesthetics, it shows who you support, it shows like, yeah.
My last 3 NFTs were made by a 7-year-old. Got like these like little scribbly octopus that the Rizzo's kid made.
That's so cool.
Yeah, those are my latest ones. But yeah, what I love actually is like when you look at your own wallet, and especially when you've been here a little while and you go all the way down, you're just like, it's a trip down memory lane. It's like, that's the first NFT I bought. That's the first time I realized like what a wearable was. And I still want to make this platform that I've been harping on about, where it just dynamically generates a rabbit hole that you fall down, and it just takes you on a journey down through the history of sales.
Amazing, yeah.
But yeah, and also just quickly on that note, your wallet is so much more than your wallet, and I think that as time goes on, we're going to realize that this is like a legacy that we're creating, and it's something that will go in our will. It's something that will carry on long after we're gone, and it's something that you've got to really protect and, take pride in as well, I think, because you're basically writing this like indelible story about your choices.
Totally. I love the idea of crypto wallet as portable identity, where it shows like the pull-ups that you've like accumulated over the years, the people you supported, even like your I guess your degen sensibilities, depending on like how many shitcoins you have.
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to. I've got over 3,000 transactions in my MetaMask, jumping between various crap coins.
I know. I was gonna say you could do a whole collection, your FOMO collection, the ones I should have never bought. You're like, I'll buy a banana. I bought a banana. I'm like, what the hell was I doing buying a banana? Your state of mind. Like the NFT, that picnic event we went to was so cool, listening to your stories about those NFTs, how everybody talked about why they collected this piece, and to hear beyond, like you're saying, the collector story, like you're sharing your own journey with them. And then that's what other people do with your work. I'm sure, like, this is my Metageist piece. Check out the Cyclops with AR,
Yeah, and some people like naysayers are like, well, why would you buy this if it's not even a thing? It's it's not real. It's just a JPEG or whatever. But it's like the fact that the artwork I've collected that has supported artists that I love looking at is portable and liquid, and I don't need to find a space, because I mean I've got lots of art from my friends in my hometown, but honestly most of it is in a wardrobe. Like most of it's away because I haven't got the wall space for it. So I love the fact that I can just put it up in multiple VR galleries and multiple, places, and still support the art, still keep the art, still have the memories. Yeah, and it's there as part of my little story in my wallet. It's weird, like wallet's not really the right term. Obviously, we do a lot of currency swapping and things like that with it, and it is where value is stored. But yeah, I just think it's much more than that. It's an extension of yourself. It's like an expression of yourself.
We would love to hear from you what you're starting. I guess what the starter pack is, like how does an emerging artist go into exploring VR or VR creation, VR sculpting?
Cool. Yeah. So on any sort of VR headset, and I use Oculus, and it's a real shame that it's Facebook owned. It really bugs me, but and they also, you need a Facebook account now. You can't use one.
Oh damn! Oh, they got you. So they're going to own your content, or no? They don't own your shit?
I don't know. Probably. I've probably sold my soul, haven't I?
Probably have.
just so I can continue sculpting. And the problem is that Oculus have got some of the best software. So Oculus Medium is PC only, so you can't do it on the wireless headset on its own. But it's incredible, and it's free, and it's like digital clay. And I really want to get back into it. I haven't used it for like over a year now, but it's really, really, really good. And they've got Quill as well, which is like 3D spatial animation tool, which is really, really good.
Oh, cool.
Apart from those two things, I don't think there's anything that I would miss if I didn't use Oculus, but they're both like incredible. Like they're so good, and they've sort of like, yeah. And I got into it before they made you sign up with a Facebook account, but now I have to sort of say, yeah, like I highly recommend this, but you're selling your soul to the Mark Zuckerberg. Like honestly, I've seen some sort of clips about their metaverse thing that they're building, and it's like it's imminent. It's going to drop very soon, and it's when you jump into Facebook's Horizon when it's launched very soon. your avatar already looks like you because they've got all your photos.
Oh, that's so disturbing.
Yeah, and also like I'm afraid that
No.
sort of stuff that's the opposite of what I think the metaverse should
Yeah,
be.
you
I mean,
don't want that.
if I want to be
I don't
a
want to.
dragon or you know,
Yeah,
a giant sea spider, then I don't want to just like be
look like
me but low poly, you know.
Totally. Yeah.
That's not why we're doing this. You know, you're missing the point.
Exactly. Yeah. Like
Sorry.
metaverse is supposed to be a space where we can actually explore other identities, right? Like or other parts of ourselves. And so
Yeah, absolutely. And the internet's been doing it for a long time, helping people, but VR especially helps you like embody a different body. You know, people use it to help them transition. It's incredibly powerful for people with social anxiety. I worked with kids with teenagers with social anxiety and VR, and you'd think like putting a box on your face would be the opposite of what you're supposed to do. But if you go to social occasions in VR and you get overwhelmed, you can just take the headset off and be back in your bedroom. So it's ideal for people with social anxiety if they want to sort of meet people, but they want to be able to teleport away at any moment. So yeah, exactly. I think VR chat and various different VR like metaverse spaces foster these not only like sort of things to help you, you know, personally, but help foster like communities based on anything other than sort of location, sex, skin color, demographic of any kind. Like it is sort of like a great global community. So
absolutely. Yeah.
But yeah, that was a bit of a tangent. But yeah, I'm gonna look at the Facebook Horizons out of sheer morbid curiosity. I'm sure they're probably gonna have some really fun games and creative tools. I've been hearing from people that have been testing the beta, but I can't imagine it's something that will keep me sort of hooked in any way.
Yeah.
But then I also think it's funny that some of the really big and really valuable metaverse projects like Somnium Space that, you know, people spend 6 figures on land in virtual land NFTs for in a world where there's no teleporting and there's no flying. It's like, what are you doing? Like I think I actually like Somnium Space and I like the team, but at the same time that's not how I envision the sort of the metaverse. I can't even fly. Like what is wrong with you? Everyone wants to fly.
Yeah. That is so true. That's so
and it's
true.
like, and I laugh at chairs and tables and stairs and things that don't need to be in the metaverse at all. But they make people feel comfortable because it's like, at least it's a little bit like the real world. Yeah, it'd be nice to be able to go throw people straight into a, you know, infinite fractal dreamland. But I don't think Granny's going to enjoy that on Boxing Day when you surprise her with that. So
count me into that. I'll travel there.
Yeah. Here's a cabin in the woods, and you can pick up the mug like it's real. That sort of thing. I think you need that transition for the metaverse. That's
totally.
Skeuomorphism.
I guess to maybe quickly recap the starter pack. So one needs an Oculus to get started. And what specific software do you recommend?
Yeah, so I always recommend Tilt Brush. It costs a little bit. It's like $20, something like that. Tilt Brush is by Google. I think they might have stopped supporting it, and it doesn't seem to have been updated in a long time. But I worked with 6 and 7 year olds and 88 and 90-year-old women, and in like a pension, like in an old people's home, and everybody got Tilt Brush straight away. So it's a great, regardless of who you are or how into technology you are, you put it on and you can just paint with glitter and fire and ribbons and paint and ink and whatever all around you, and you get it very quickly. You're like, oh, this is something I've never seen done before. That's why this is an interesting technology. So, and you can create, it's really, really fun. I took it to kids with terminal illnesses in London hospitals when we did a little bit of research into VR therapy, because it actually creates a really calm, sort of safe space. So I highly recommend that. You put good music on, you just get comfortable and just paint and explore. So Tilt Brush is great because you get it. It's just got a very simple menu, a lot of tools. It's more powerful than it seems at first. It's actually really good. But if you want to then create assets that can be used for games or VR sort of installations and things, it might not be the best, because it exports really heavy files with thousands of messy polygons and stuff. So, but it's a very good first sort of dip your toe in the water type piece of software. And then there's Oculus Medium, which is the clay, which is amazing, but you need the PC for that. The other one I use all the time that works on the wireless headset is Gravity Sketch, which I'll show you in a minute. That one's I love it. I really enjoy it. It also creates quite small files, relatively small files, so it's quite usable for uploading to NFT platforms. So you can export, you can display 3D models on Super Rare, Known Origin, on Hiket Nun Contezos, on Cargo. That's another platform. All of those things you can display 3D models, and soon Rarible. Apparently, I haven't seen them. I haven't physically seen them yet, but you might know. But I think 3D is coming to Rarible. So you can create something in Gravity Sketch, and you could theoretically just upload it. You've got like an online file storage that comes with it, and it's free.
What
and
file format is that?
Exports OBJ. Okay. You would have to. I think it exports FBX as well. You would have to convert to GLB to get it to show on these websites. Like, it seems like everyone's using GLB. It's kind of like the JPEG of 3D files, so it's lighter and more compressed, and displays everywhere quite nicely. And that's the same for augmented reality as well. But one of the big considerations is file size. So the amount of triangles and faces and textures, materials can add up very quickly and make files too big for AR, for instance. So the limit on AR for Snapchat is 8 megabytes, and that's recently doubled from 4, but it's still, for 3D files, it's still quite low. So depending on what, like if you were to like scribble in Tilt Brush for 2 hours, you're not going to be able to put whatever you've made, if it's really complex, up onto a platform very easily at all. So sometimes you can spend longer trying to make a file smaller afterwards and cleaning it up than you did actually making it, if you don't know that beforehand. So yeah, Gravity Sketch is actually made for hard surface modeling for like cars and product design and things like that. And I just use it for anemones and octopuses and spiders.
That's awesome.
Amazing.
I don't necessarily use it properly. So I will, that's a caveat I will add, because I use the ink tool to build volume, which is a really weird and stupid way of doing things, but it works for me. But
well, maybe it's time for you to show us.
Yeah, like, let's dive in.
What your process is. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Okay, in that case, I'll load up Gravity Sketch and show you the piece that I've just actually finished it, so you'll see the file. And then I can show you how some of it was made. So yeah, this is Gravity Sketch. Before I distract with that, so I'm left-handed, so I've got my paintbrush in my left hand, and I've got my menus in my right, and I can just choose a bunch of different tools and loads of different settings. I can bring in a mannequin if I wanted to sort of use a human mannequin, or I can bring in like a car or a head that I can work on. I can sort of trace in 3D. But I can bring in reference images. I don't generally really use reference images though, to be honest. I try to, and I ignore them. But I've got some of my own work in here. Like this is one that METAVERSE bought. And that's actually a 3D sculpture made in Gravity Sketch. And now you can put it up in VR and it plays music. And it basically, the idea is it sort of entices you in. It's like it's like the size of like a bandstand, so you can get like 20 people standing underneath it.
Wow.
Nice.
So yeah, you can bring in reference images if you want to use reference images. So I did start with one for this one briefly. I drew this on Procreate first, and then I sort of mapped this over the top. So you can see the basic shape came from that. And that's really, you can lock it down so it sticks as well. So that's really handy. But yeah, so I've got like ink and stroke, the two different sort of drawing tools. So if I pull the trigger down, and it's really intuitive, you just pull it down and it draws. It looks a lot better in the headset than it does on your video feed, because it's obviously in 3D for me. So it feels like it's an object in space in front of me, and I can move it and look at it. Something that you can do in this that you can't do in Tilt Brush is that once I've got a shape, I can tap this blue button here and you can see the nodes, and it brings up the nodes, and now it can be edited afterwards. My sort of process is often draw. If we go down to this guy, I'll get rid of that. If I sort of draw this in here, and it's roughly what I want it to be. It's a bit too big, but I can bring it like this, and I can then edit it. Then I can simplify the points, get rid of all of these extra nodes, and it gives it a nice smoother curve. And you can do that again. And then I can just grab these pieces and move them until, and you're constantly changing your view and pull it up. But then you can also change the width. So I've got a thumbstick here. So once I'm in here, I can just make this chunkier or thinner. So then I can just tweak it until I'm like happy with the composition. I call upon my experience as a logo designer a lot as well, and try to find simple forms and like nice contrast, and try to keep information at a minimum, kind of, so that like it's nice and it's like a stylized look to it. So then like you can also do things like you can see with this sort of grass like leaf type thing. If I zoom in, you see closely, it's flat. If I just try to get it so you can see the menu and the shape, I can just pull this around to affect it. So nice and chunky, and then thin, and then obviously like a ribbon. And that's still, it's non-destructive. So like it's like vectors basically. So it's sharp. What's really cool is like I can zoom in, bearing in mind that for me this is 3D and it's very immersive, and I can zoom right down to this and I can draw a little person. best art I've ever made. Stick that there. And like he's still nice and sharp. I can zoom out and zoom out and zoom out and zoom out and zoom out. And so there's almost infinite level of detail, because now I can go down and down.
Wow,
and I can draw,
that's so cool.
Wow.
That's amazing.
like another little guy. And then, so obviously in the future when the PCs are good enough, we'll be able to sort of create worlds that act like that, where we can just really play with scale. So I do that a lot in my work as well. I do a lot of like making macro stuff big, like that giant bug, that's just based on an insect, but it's huge because it's quite fun in VR to play with scale. Because if I like go in here and I can sort of stand here, and I'm basically in this like alien landscape. So it's really fun, especially like with music on and stuff. You just have this immersive environment where you've just got like infinite possibilities. And
can you animate you said you animate in Gravity Sketch, or you have to bring it out, or how does that work?
Yeah, so you don't animate in Gravity Sketch, but you can create things that are fit for animation, then use other software. You can use, there's a few animation programs. There's Quill, which is great, but it's very like self-contained. But although there is an artist as part of my next group drop, Oggy, he's done an incredible like 8-minute film, all done using virtual reality animation tools. So it can be done, but a lot of people still go into desktop software for that sort of thing.
Like Cinema 4D, or what kind of software?
Yeah, or Blender. Well, I've used Blender for my last Nifty Gateway drop. I used Blender for my lighting and cameras and some animation and stuff.
I was curious because like this piece that you were working on is very like uniform. I wonder if you designed both sides separately, or was it sort of like have you used like a mirror sort of like feature where you only design one side?
I use a mirror down the center, so I can turn the mirror on here. I don't know if the mirror is going to be in the right place. Yeah. So the way I like to work, because it saves time, turn on the mirror. So say I got rid of those, I can just like draw it in symmetry.
Nice. That's so cool.
Yeah.
I really like just going like this, like getting and I really want to incorporate this sort of thing into my work, so I can get the symmetry on, and then you can also turn on speed. So the faster your hand moves, the thinner it gets. So you can do like cursive stuff,
Oh, that's gorgeous.
graffiti, or
Yeah,
like
totally, like graph art in the metaverse.
calligraphy. And I love these forms. I just
Oh,
haven't
there's
really
creatures and creatures in it, you know? Look at that.
exactly. You can just go like this.
I know, that's beautiful right
course,
there.
look at this. You can also just like tweak, like bend it.
He's like a praying mantis monster creature. That's
really
wicked.
is. You can just go pull that up, make this a lot fatter.
Yeah, I could see how you could get lost every day in this. I would.
Same.
It's so cool.
There we go. Let's start to make a praying mantis.
Oh, he totally looks like it now. Look at that.
I could just go get this, go for a slightly different, go for a darker green.
I know, praying mantis to me are like such alien cool creatures. I love them.
Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing. I've actually got a 3D printed praying mantis piece that I made years ago. I've got it right here on my desk.
Oh, yeah. Show us afterwards. Yeah, please.
That was really cool because I actually made it into an NFT in retrospect, and I did it on Cargo, and I had the 3D print file in the unlockable file.
Look at
and
that.
I can just like look at that. I can just go like that.
And it's so fast. I mean, but also you're a master. I mean, this is like your.
Well, it's also like it's kind of a mess as well. Oh, yeah, I might keep this. And then so you can also just add another node, and then you can, so then I could keep going. But you've also got, if I wanted to put wings on him really quickly, I could use this. Is a really satisfying tool to use. I love it. You use both hands. So look, you just draw a ribbon with both hands. It's really satisfying. And the controllers also vibrate gently when you're doing it. So it really feels like you're like pulling this fabric out. So if I wanted to do like, I can't remember what their wings. If I simplify it, where is it? Turn it into a subdivision object. That means that I can add more nodes to it. But then I can also, you can turn on subdivision so it makes it nice and soft. So I could do that, and I can make like more complex shapes with curves. Very good for making like fabrics. And I can turn on low poly and make it sharp again as well.
One thing you just said that I love, that I think that's why I think I need to go and play in this, is like the gestural like satisfaction is so important as an artist, you know? And a lot of the digital tools, you don't get that, even with the cheesy, like, you know, Wacom tablet. This looks like you're in bliss creating.
Yeah, and also like the sort of physical input too.
Yeah,
it's almost like you're working with your hands, but digitally.
Exactly.
You absolutely are. Yeah, you absolutely are. And this is there's a big part of my work that I don't think I communicate well enough, is that it's all metaverse native. I deliberately only use the VR tools. I don't use any other assets. I don't use any other programs to create any shapes. So the characters that I make that are designed to exist in VR are also made in VR, like they're literally VR native. So yeah. So, but they're like, that means that they kind of look like they are as well. They're made of brush strokes. That's deliberate. I want that to be the case because I'm a massive. I love the software and I'm an ambassador for it, for that creative freedom. It is just doodling, and doodling is really, really fun and really good for you. Like, it's really therapeutic, and to do it in a space where you've got no distractions is a privilege. I think we're like really lucky.
Totally.
To be able to. And I can just look at this. I can just go and just make another one.
That's insects are aliens anyway. So
yeah, absolutely. They absolutely are. They're alien societies all around us that we ignore.
So I'm curious, okay, like in this space, can, like, let's say when you're saying you're teaching people, like if I had my own headset, I could go in there with you and look at this? And
yeah, so I was about to say something about that. The downside is that no one's really done a good multiplayer one yet.
okay.
There's a friend of mine, an artist, Rosie Summers, has been part of a team working on a multiplayer tilt brush thing.
That would be
Because
cool.
Google have sort of said that they're kind of not really supporting tilt brush anymore, but they've handed over the API. Is it API? I think, so that other people can develop on it. That is not a mantis anymore.
Like
a
mantis spaceship.
Crazy.
I love it. Oh, I love the teeth coming at you. You always have those cool teeth.
Yeah, well, this is it. You can see how I've got to a lot of my models, like my Nifty Gateway meta filos. This is how I did it. All of them are improvised. They're all just like on the spot, and then I just sort of like simplify them so that they're like easy to understand and not too complex, and that people can put them in their VR galleries and stuff without it crashing the system. So I often just like make crazy like characters and shapes.
I'm gonna replay this to watch how quickly you transformed Mantis to Spider Dude.
Yeah, so another thing you can do actually that's cool, I don't know if I've got a great example. Let me have a look very quickly. Yeah, when you've got, yeah, cool. So when you've got a reference image like this, a feature that they don't really shout about is that I can now draw this and just add that texture to it, paint in a texture. So one of my Nifty Gateway drops is called Metamorphosis, and it's really weird. No one's really done it before because it looks kind of janky, but I basically recorded time lapse of my creative process and then turned it into like digital puppetry. So then I just added textures like these and then just built things from scratch, improvised, jumbled them around, and then sold the time lapse recordings as NFTs. It's really fun. It's really it's really underappreciated compared to my other work, but it's some of my favorite stuff because it's just really, it was like so much fun to do that, like with no real sort of barriers, just like have fun and mint it. I mean, it was a very successful drop, but I do think like it sort of disappeared into oblivion, but I basically used Gravity Sketch as a puppet studio because yeah, it's very, very fun. I mean, I've made a complete mess, but I really enjoy it.
Well, it's just
so
fun
fresh.
watching. I mean, it's like, I'm so engaged. I could watch this for hours.
Tomorrow night, I'm doing a live show. Tomorrow night, I'm getting on stage with my mates who are DJing at a club at the first Flux Club night since lockdown. And I'm going to be working on the next one of these. Yeah, it's like super good fun.
Is that happening consistently, Lee? The event?
In the future, I reckon it will if I'm allowed. I'm hoping to go to New York in November, and I'm going to try and be part of NFT NYC and try and talk them into letting me do a show there, because I actually quite enjoy putting the music on and doing it to music and doing basically VJing but with VR tools. It is really engaging to watch other people. I absolutely love watching other people work in VR as well.
Yeah, I like this. I mean, I like VJing too, but I like this more. I mean, it's just, I can see you creating so quickly, and it's just, yeah, it would be awesome. Again, like you said, if there were that multiplayer thing and you have headsets and everyone could just be in there, like immersed with it.
Really want that. I've been wanting that since the very first time I used Tilt Brush. You can do it. There's a piece of software that you can get on the Quest called Sculptor, and it's multiplayer, but it's very, very low res, very sort of low poly. It crashes and stuff, but it is really fun. You can be in there with someone else and just make things with this really like low poly clay. So it does exist, but it's the problem is it's already very processor and graphics intensive to run VR at all, let alone with like keeping two people in sync and making things out of nothing. So the whole thing's quite intensive, but we'll get there. As soon as there's good multiplayer thing, I'm going to be in there all the time. You can just have so much fun.
That's cool. I know one of the things like, that we decided to shift a little in the campaign is first we were going to do it just VR, and we decided to do 2 categories. So for people who are submitting stuff, they can do VR sculpted if they have the tools, and then also non-VR sculpted it's going to be the same theme. That way it's just, they can still participate, but at least they can like see what you're doing, get inspired, eventually, hopefully like me, save up to get some tools and start creating.
Yeah, might be good, Natalie, to if you want, you could outline the contest that we're actually doing, after this video's release.
We're inviting the crypto art community to participate in this competition. I believe we'll have 2 weeks for people to submit. That's the time frame we've built in. There will be 2 categories. You can submit an NFT that you're going to mint on Rarible.com, and we're going to have all the info and the details below. And you can submit, and you could do VR sculpted, and ideally, you could do your unlockable as the actual 3D file would be awesome. And if you don't have these tools, we wanted to keep it open and accessible to all artists, and inspire you to maybe one day explore this. But again, if you don't, like I don't yet, but I will one day. You can submit with non-VR tools using whatever software you use, but hopefully you get super inspired like we both have been by Metageist's amazing process. And there will be 2 winners, and these winners will actually get 1,700 US Rari equivalent. Metageist, Mark and me and a friend, a guest judge, will come in and judge, and also we'll have a community vote as well.
Amazing.
So there is actual prize money, which is awesome that we got the funding for that.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, and it's gonna be fun also to see, the participants to actually see their artwork, and maybe I'm really curious what Metageist's feedback would be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing.
Yeah, we're hoping again you can share with people who want to participate. It would be awesome to get the word out there to VR sculptors.
Thinking that tomorrow at my show, I know that some people are coming just to sort of see the software I use when I do before. So if they decide that they're going to get a headset, I'll be like, cool, do this. You never know.
Lee, really wanted to be mindful of your time, and I think you really shared a lot. Not only concepts, but your workflows, your way of creating your process. I think it's really very helpful, and I feel like I'm excited to see what other artists can learn from this and how they can apply it into their own practice. I was asking if you have any tips on how to gain followers and build a network, and then second, how to share your art in this nascent space.
Yeah, and also the whole collector. Yeah, how to build collector network too.
Yeah. So I came into the space feeling that if I had to be taken seriously, and if I was going to really be sort of eventually one of the really successful big names in the space in the future, that I should go lean into scarcity and just do one of ones. And some people may still think that that's a good move, but generally now I actually suggest that people get in as quickly as they can, and make their art affordable. Make it choose. Obviously, be careful. Don't just throw anything out. Choose the work you're really proud of. Doesn't matter if it's already been done, but make sure it's not something that you're tired of. Make sure it's something that you're still proud of and that you would want to shout about. And maybe do small additions, and don't get too greedy. Make it so that they're actually affordable. And tell your story. It's really, really important to communicate who you are, why you're doing what you're doing, what your ambitions are, and also, and you will inevitably, as when you make your first sort of sales, and really share how that's affected you in your life and how that's made you feel, because it's just as rewarding buying someone else's art as it is to sell your art. It's lovely to be part of either side of that sort of transaction, either side of that relationship. Look at other people's art, engage with other artists, buy other art if you've got any funds to buy other art. Don't be shy about that. Don't feel like you have to sell before you buy, because being part of that community and reciprocating is gonna, it's like general rule for life, really. People think that networking is a bad word, and it's probably not the nicest way of saying it, but this is how humans work. We're social animals, and being a part of a community and sort of supporting other people and being open about what you're doing, where you're going, what your ambitions are, can sort of really help. So don't wait around for your big sale before you become part of the community. And like, you don't have to be, it doesn't have to be like this cynical, like, oh, I'm going to put up a tweet with a bunch of relevant hashtags so I can get some engagement. It can just be like, hey, like, I'm still like lost with MetaMask. Like, how do I do this? Exactly. I mean, that's how you meet people, because you'll find that actually, you know, 99% of people just want the best for everybody, and they're really helpful. Everybody's gone through that. Oh my God, I've just sent my ETH off to the other side of the, or like, how do I price something when Ethereum is like fluctuating wildly every single day, and what the hell's a DAO, and all of these sorts of things. Like, all of these questions are questions that everyone else has had,
and still having. So
and still having. Yeah, I mean, I saw a thing that said like a third of people in crypto don't know what they're doing. I was like, a third? That's 95. Yeah, it doesn't have to be forced. It's just like, don't be shy. Just, you know, just share your fears and your successes. Everybody else in the space has actually gone through what you're going through when it comes to like figuring out getting over those early barriers. But that's why the community is so good, because you've got people that have persisted because they can see, you know, the value in it, and they're excited about the future. So another bit of advice that's just come to me is I would say lean into your weirdest self. Don't try to make something that will sell. Don't stick an Ethereum logo on something because you think people are going to buy it. Or, I mean, I don't mean don't. I mean, you can, but I think like idiosyncratic, unusual, weird processes and ideas are really rewarded, because collectors are looking for art that they love looking at, or like love to understand the story behind. But they're also looking for integrity, and they want to see that you're one of these people that for whatever reason is compelled to make stuff. And you're not just, you know, jumping in because there's money to be made. You're doing this because this is something you've always done, or something you've always wanted to do. Yeah. And it doesn't have to be perfect. You can be paralyzed by the fear of releasing something, and sometimes it's good just to let it out into the world and realize that you're your worst critic, and other people are going to really love that thing that you thought might be too weird or too ugly to put out there. I mean, I do like time lapse inside out insect faces, and they sell. So you know, there's a low bar. Yeah, generally it just comes down to being open, honest, and actually you're going to have to interact with people because it's a noisy space. And you know, we're talking about the internet, we're talking about Twitter, and you know, it doesn't have to be like standing up and screaming from the rooftop. It can just be consistently sharing what you're doing. And you're going to attract people that will be quietly watching what you're doing, and you won't know. And then all of a sudden you'll make a big sale, and it's because they've been tagging along, checking you out for the last 6 months. And they do understand what you're doing, and they do really want to be part of your sort of story. So yeah, just stay active, be visible, be part of the community, and lean into your weirdest self. And don't be sort of impatient either, because it might not happen overnight. But yeah, I've onboarded lots of people, and I've seen time and time again people succeed and have their mind blown by like people supporting them, and it can really sort of,
that's awesome.
But yeah, make it also something that people go, you know, I don't necessarily know who this person is exactly, but this picture is really cool, and I can afford it, and I want it in my collection. So I've definitely seen where people have come in with the prices too high, and they will get passed over, and then it might be a long time again before those people see them again and realize that actually they've lowered their prices now because they didn't get any traction straight away. So yeah, value your work, but also don't overvalue your work. And when it comes to actually what to price, that doesn't get easier. Like, that's always really hard, no matter like how long you've been doing it, because there's so many factors at play. So it's hard to sort of say. But the general rule I say, because I do get asked it, is like what to value it. It's like, if you imagine, like, sit and think about it and really imagine it selling. And are you and think of a figure, and are you happy with the figure you got? And if it's like, no, it needs to be a bit more, then make it a bit higher. But you could have less of them. Make it, if you're going to go high, make it a 101 or make it rarer. But don't underestimate what it is to get into a wallet and be and have a new collector because you did like 50 copies of something cool and unique, and it was very easy for people to pick up, because you're picking up collectors. Then they are invested in you, even if it's just a tiny amount, and they will notice your future stuff. So doing something that's easy to pick up and easy to hold, and that connects you to a new person, is something that it can like reap rewards in the future.
Awesome.
I don't know if that was helpful.
Those are, thank you for those tips. There's
I
a lot
know.
in there that we could sort of like dive into, or, my hope is that, and I'm sure that, the audience would really take a lot of like good takeaways from what you've shared.
Yeah. So our Metageist everywhere. And I'm about to curate a big show on a new NFT platform. I can't tell you who it is yet, but no one's heard of it yet. It's brand new, and keep an eye out for that if you want to see some really cool new stuff. And it's a new platform that's going to be looking for new artists very soon.
Thanks for watching. We hope that you've been inspired by our conversation with Metageist. Now go make something cool.
And if you'd like to enter the contest, the details are in the description below. Join the community on Discord and follow us on all socials. Thanks again to Rarible DAO for supporting this project, and
See you all soon.